How are you doing? Welcome back to Dan's Aquarium. So before Christmas I wanted to do a collab with another YouTuber called Dan at Dan's Fish, and because of coronavirus and everything like that, things got like delayed and everything. So I sent him questions through email, and yeah, here's his response now. I'll do the video of him doing it, and yeah, there you go. It's Dan at Dan's Fish.
Hello folks, I'm Dan, your friendly fishmonger from dansfish.com, and Dan's Aquarium asked me if I would answer some questions. So, hey Dan, hope you're doing well. I haven't pre-read these or anything. I want my reaction to be the same first impression as everyone else gets when they hear these. So I'm going to read these for you, Dan, and hopefully it makes some interesting content that you can use. So here we go. Number one, what got you into fish keeping? What got me into fish keeping was mostly a love of nature that I seem to be like born with, I guess. But I remember a couple times, one when I was just a wee tyke, I might have been 5 or 6 years old. My mom had taken us shopping in town, which was this big, long, boring ordeal we all hated. But when we were walking, it was this big kind of strip mall. There was a Kmart on one end, and then the grocery store, I don't remember if it was an Albertsons or Bel Air or what, on the other. And we were crossing from one store to the other, and there's this little pet store in between. And I convinced her to let me go in, and it was this dingy little kind of unkept pet store, but they had a few fish tanks, not a lot, but a few. And I remember seeing neon tetras, and I just remember them glowing, and it blew my mind. I had seen a lot of fish, I'd been fishing and stuff, but I never realized fish could glow. And so that image kind of stuck in my mind. And then later, between the summer of 6th grade and 7th grade, my little brother got a little 10-gallon aquarium, and he set it up on the kitchen counter, and my life has never been the same since. So I fell in love with that aquarium, and it was his, but based on my love for it, I got a couple aquariums in my bedroom, and then I had a whole rack of aquariums in my bedroom, and then I barely had room for bed in my bedroom, and so my parents let me take over a section of the basement, and I set up 50 aquariums down there and kind of never looked back. So I don't know, but fish or reptiles or birds or all kinds of little critters, I've always been fascinated with the natural world. Question number 2. How many years have you had fish for? I started the summer between 6th and 7th grade, so I'm not sure exactly, but I think we're going on 28 years, something like that. What is your favorite fish? So it's a hard question to answer. My favorite group of fish, if I could only keep one group of fish ever for the rest of my life, would be killifish. I find the variety fascinating, the different reproductive behaviors fascinating. And killifish, you have, as people know, the annual killifish that lay the eggs, and then their little pool of water dries up, all the fish die, but the eggs survive until next time it rains, and then they hatch. And so you have these desert pools or savanna pools that are temporary, and yet they're full of fish, which is awesome. And then you have the non-annuals and the semi-annuals, which reproduce on a more traditional manner. But then you have these little outliers, like I think it's called Cryptolebius marmoratus. It used to be called Rivulus marmoratus, which is a hermaphrodite. They're pretty much all females. Every now and then, under the perfect conditions, a male might develop, but they're pretty much all females, and they lay eggs which are clones of themselves. So that's pretty cool. And then there's other species that practice internal fertilization. They're not live bearers, they're killifish, and they lay eggs, but they're fertilized internally. And what's weirder is several of those are annual killifish. So I don't know, I just find that whole having adapted to some of the harshest environments and all these little tiny niches that they inhabit and the ways they've done that fascinating. Plus, so many of them are beautiful, and it's fun to raise them up and breed them and stuff. So killifish are my favorite group of fish. And if there was only ever one killifish I could ever keep, it would probably be Fundulopanchax gardneri. That's my favorite, probably for nostalgic reasons. That's the one I got started with and kind of really had success breeding for the first time and raising. And they're beautiful and they're hardy and yeah, they're just fascinating. 4, how many fish do you own? Geez, I don't know. I currently at getgills.com or dansfish.com, we have, what was the count? 100 and I can look it up. 119 species listed for sale, something like that. And we probably have an additional 20 or 30 that are not listed for sale, either because they haven't made it through quarantine yet, or they have an illness and they're being treated, or they're too young and we're raising them up, things like that. So a lot, but I really don't know for sure how many. 5, when you started YouTube, what did you expect to happen from it? Absolutely nothing. When I first started YouTube, the only reason I did it is I needed a place to host videos so I could link my online sales to it. At the time I was using Aquabid, and so in order for people to see the fish, I put a little YouTube URL in the Aquabid post, and people could click on it and see a video. So really I just did it to help my customers see the fish they were going to buy. So honestly, I didn't even know YouTube was a thing. I only treated it as a video hosting platform, kind of like you would Shutterstock, or not Shutterstock, Shutterfly or PhotoBucket. That's the one I'm thinking of for your pictures. Use that to host the pictures, and YouTube for the videos, for those postings for fish for sale. It wasn't until, I think it was, I had been doing that for a couple of years before I realized YouTube was an interesting platform to do more than that on. But really it just started out of, where do I keep this video so I can share it with my customers? 6, if you could get one fish from each country and breed with, what fish would it be? Okay, one fish from each country. Well, there's a lot of countries, so let me go kind of by region, I guess. And I honestly don't know. So I want to clarify that just because I'm going to say a fish, it's just the first one that's going to pop to my mind. I don't have particular favorites. I think they're all awesome, honestly. But North America would probably be Fundulus catenatus, the northern studfish. That's a killifish. It's big, it's beautiful, it's interesting. It lays eggs the size of trout eggs. They're huge, they're easy to hatch. I like that fish a lot. A close runner-up would probably be the orange throat darter. I've had those in the past and I really enjoy them. Central America, so I can't do one for each country. There's hundreds of countries in the world, but Central America, I like some of the small species that are closely related, say, to convict cichlids, but aren't necessarily, kind of like Honduran red points, but some of the other flavors in that kind of group. So I like those, and I like firemouth cichlids a lot. So maybe something like that. South America, the first thing that pops to my mind is splash tetras. I think they're so fun to breed, the way they reproduce and lay their eggs out of the water and then do all that work to keep the eggs moist until they hatch. I've been looking for splash tetras for a long time, and I want to bring some in. And I have a supplier, but the price is so darn high that I just haven't done it. So one day. So let's move over to, I guess, Africa. Right now, I think in Africa it would be one of the Nanochromis species. And no particular one, just I haven't tried Nanochromis. I haven't done much with them, so I'd like to try some little dwarf African cichlids from the Nanochromis genus. There's a ton of killifish there too that are all great, but I've kept most of them. So just to like try a new one to breed, it would probably be a Nanochromis species. From Asia, let's see, to keep and breed. Because the question was to breed. I'm not sure. Asia, there's so many. So I like lots of fish from Asia. Like I like a lot of the Gara and things like that. I think are underappreciated, but they're not necessarily something that's easy to breed. So I'm trying to think of something from Asia that's like easy to breed, since the question is about breeding. So I want to make it something that's possible to breed, that'll have a likely chance of success. So let's see. I don't know. There's some amazing barbs. I really like the draped fin barb a lot, and so I'm going to go with draped fin barbs. Oryctes, I think it's Oryctes crenichoides is the one, if I remember right. Australia, it would probably be one of the rainbow fish, and I'm not sure which one, but let's go with a Radinocentris rainbow fish of some kind. Have I covered them? Hang on. India. Actually, the draped fin barb is probably more from India. So let's just keep that there. Antarctica, no clue. I think that's the general areas. If I missed a continent, I'm so sorry. Oh, Europe. Europe, it would probably be one of the Aphanius species or Valencia species. Cute little underappreciated killifish species from Asia, or from Europe. So I think that covers it. We'll go by continent instead of by country. Number 7, what advice would you give for people starting in fish keeping, like size of tank and what fish to start with? So I wouldn't tell people what size of tank or what fish to start with. I think the fish to start with is completely up to the aesthetic that pleases the individual person that's keeping the fish. So there are so many fish that are good for beginners from so many different types. So you could do Danias, you could do Tetras, there's cichlids, there's all kinds of fish from barbs and minnows and lots of stuff. So I would find out what they're interested in, what they like, and then based on the list of what they like, narrow it down to something for them. But you can't go wrong with like white clouds. Super easy, super hardy, super colorful, neat fish, and fun as well. What size tank? I don't know. How much room do you have? If you've just got a little dresser by your bed and you can only put a 10-gallon, then a 10-gallon. If you've got more room, then we go up from there. But so the main advice, I think, for people just starting out is not necessarily keep this size tank and keep this size fish, and keep this type of fish. Although, larger tanks are easier to maintain, so that's always nice. But it's more like just understand the nitrogen cycle. Understand how ammonia turns to nitrite and then gets converted to nitrate, and how to manage that. That's really, if you can figure out the nitrogen cycle and understand that what keeping fish is there's an old saying, you don't keep fish, you keep water. So just understanding the basics of how water gets dirty, bad for fish, and how to maintain things so that the water stays healthy for the fish. I honestly think that is the key. And that's a little backwards. Most people start by, they walk in a store or something, or they see a friend's fish tank and, that's so pretty, I want that. And the first thought is, I'm going to keep a pretty fish in an aquarium versus I'm going to figure out how to keep an aquarium so I can keep the fish healthy. So I know it's a little counterintuitive, but I think if there was an ideal way for newbies to have success, I think that would be it. Number 8, do you prefer fake or real plants? I was just going to say real plants, but there are definitely instances where I prefer fake plants. So it really depends, but in general, where possible, real plants for sure. Number 9, what is your opinion or things you hate that happen on YouTube? I don't have a real opinion about YouTube because there's so many, like in the fish tubing community or the fish fam community, there's so many individuals that are doing so many different things. So it's hard to aggregate it into one opinion. Generally, I think it's great. I think that anytime you can build a community that supports the members of that community and is there for them, I think that's a good starting point. And I think we have that. I think that the kind of fish tube and fish fam community on YouTube does a good job of really trying to help people. And has less drama than any other community I've ever been involved with. So I think it's off to a good start. Of course, the downside of having any platform where anyone can give advice is, how do you vet the quality of the advice? And I think that's the hardest part for someone that's new, is they ask a question, say in a live stream chat or on a Facebook group or whatever, they get an answer. How do they know the quality of that answer, where it came from, the knowledge behind it, things like that? So that's, I think, the toughest part about YouTube or any kind of social crowdsourced information aggregate site, whatever it might be, Reddit, whatever, is that the problem used to be there were no answers. The problem now are there are too many answers, and figuring out what the good answers are. 10, do you prefer cold, salt, or tropical fish? Oh, cold water, salt water, or tropical fish. So I like them all, but for keeping, I prefer just, your standard, something that I can keep easily in standard tropical range. And by that, I'm not talking like mid 80s or something where the real hot fish need it, rams and discus and things like that. I'm talking about, that range of, say, 74 to 78, and they can survive up in the 80s if you have a hot summer, maybe 80, 82, something like that. I'm talking Fahrenheit here because I'm a Yank, but yeah, just because then you can keep the entire fish room at that one temperature and keep a lot of things. I really do, though, enjoy what we call cold water fish. Let's more accurately call them temperate climate fish, right? Because even in the temperate climates, summers can be warm. Native species from the US, things like that, where they need a cooling period to breed and things. I like a lot of those, so I really enjoy them. I just think that in order to keep them in a full fish room, you would need the whole fish room to kind of be at those lower ranges and overwinter and things. So you'd be dedicating, if I did it, I'd be dedicating the entire room to that group of fish. And when people do that, I love going over and seeing them and looking at them. And I've kept and bred a lot of natives myself. But there's so many fish from more tropical regions that I would want to keep than fish from temperate regions. So that's my answer there. Okay, what question number am I on? Let's see here. There we are. We're on number 11, and looks like there's 15. So we're on 11. If you shipped fish and they got damaged in transit and some died, would you replace them? Because some people and companies don't. Absolutely. So here's how I work that. Thankfully, it almost never happens. I think, so in 2020, the last time I ran the data for 2020, and I haven't run the last couple months yet, but we were, I think, 99.62% of the fish arrived alive and did well as far as customers reported to me. If a fish arrives dead or damaged and they don't tell me, then it's not in that sample because I just wouldn't know. But so it doesn't happen very often if you prep fish right and package them right and ship them responsibly. But when it does happen, absolutely. I'll send a replacement if I've got them, or I'll refund your money along with however much of that was shipping. So if I sent you 4 fish and they were $5 each and shipping was $20, then I would refund you $10. $5 for the fish and $5 for the amount of shipping attributed to that fish. So that's how I do it. When you sell fish, do you advise people to quarantine them first? So when I sell the fish, so there's kind of two things. I have a YouTube channel, which is Dan's Fish, and I'm pretty active on, well, not pretty, I'm somewhat active on the Get Gills Facebook group and some other social media platforms. Mainly it's Dan's Fish on YouTube, though. And so there I give all the information. I talk about quarantine. I have a live stream every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time where people can ask questions and I can give them answers. I have videos on how to quarantine fish and the whole process. I do and all that. But if someone comes and places an order on the store, I don't then respond with this lengthy, thanks for buying the fish, here's everything you have to do. I assume that people have done that research. If someone asks a question, then sure, but I find it, I don't want to call it belittling, but I don't want to assume that the person that buys is just irresponsible and be like, thanks for buying the fish. I assume you're irresponsible, so I'm going to tell you what to do. That's not how I do it. I assume that the person is an intelligent human being and has some autonomy and has made, decisions. So that's how I go about it. But I'm happy to help when there are questions. So I kind of educate on one side, and then when I sell, you buy fish. I'm like, okay, here's when I'll ship them, and I send them. And if there's questions, I'll answer them. Okay, 3, what is the one type of fish? Oh, and the other thing is, the reality is about trying to instruct people to quarantine fish. The reality is most people don't quarantine fish. Your average fish keeper has like one tank in their living room for a display. And that's all they want. They aren't like a massive fish geek like we might be. They don't have like multiple tanks and a whole room set up and a whole rack just for quarantine, things like that. So the odds are, even if you instruct someone how to quarantine, they're going to do with the fish what they're going to do with the fish, no matter what you tell them to do. Number 13, what is the one type of fish you would love to breed and build the population up? So there's a few that we're actually doing that, and I'm not doing them so much by breeding them myself, but by distributing them, that's a hard word, to breeders. So there's a few types of rainbow fish and rice fish that I've been able to bring in that are highly endangered in the wild and very difficult to find in the hobby, or impossible to find in the hobby almost in some situations. And so I bring those in, I get them all healthy, and then I sell them to people who are now breeding them. So we have Pseudomugil reticulatus is one of those, being bred here in the United States by a couple people that I've been able to sell them to. We have Oryzius profundicola and Oryzius matinensis, which are two very rare types of rice fish. And we have Chilothrina centeniensis, which is highly endangered in the wild. Their habitat has just been absolutely destroyed. So people I've been able to distribute those, and people are breeding them. I myself, I love breeding fish, and I still breed here and there a little bit, but I'm so busy on the business side of things that the majority of what I do is distribute fish. I'm not able to breed nearly as many and have nearly as much an impact by breeding as I can by seeking good sources of rare or endangered fish that need help, bringing them in and then distributing them to people that what they do all day or their main hobby and interest is breeding. So, yeah. Number 14, 2 more. Do you prefer gravel or sand when decorating an aquarium? I like them both. It depends on the situation, but my default would probably be sand. I just like the look of it. Like this tank behind me. This is just a layer of play sand that's been there forever, and I've never had to vacuum it or clean it or anything. Well, obviously. I mean, I should scrub the algae off the front occasionally. There's some babies in there, though, so I haven't. I don't want to disturb the parents. But the sand itself is super easy to maintain. You don't have to, if you do it right, you don't have to clean it much. And you still do your water changes and, scrub the front of the glass, but you don't have to worry about vacuuming it and things like that. 15, top 3 fish YouTubers you like. I'm actually going to take a pass on that one because there's so many I like. And if I just say 3, then number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will be like, what about me? What I like about YouTube mostly is the community in aggregate. It's not that there's like one person that I'm like, oh, you're my favorite. I've been supported and frankly loved by so many awesome members of the community that I couldn't narrow it down to 3, and I'd be doing an injustice to a lot of people if I did. So Dan's Aquarium, thanks for sending the questions. Glad I could finally get to it and send you some answers. Hope you can make an interesting video out of this. Yeah, have a good one. Bye-bye.
So guys, what did you think of that? All the questions I answered, the questions I said really, and the questions that he answered. Let me know if you want me to do it with another YouTuber. I'll drop their names down below. I'll try and contact them and see if they want to do a collab sort of thing. But yeah, make sure you give this video a good thumbs up, like and subscribe, turn that notification bell on, and we'll see you in the next one.